President Biden is warning the nation that we are at an inflection point in history. In his only second Oval Office address, the president declared American solidarity with Israel and Ukraine, arguing Hamas and Vladimir Putin share the same goal and that supporting both countries is vital to U.S. national security and democracy in general.
Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. I know these conflicts can seem far away, and it's natural to ask, why does this matter to America? You know, history has taught us that when terrorists don't pay a price for their terror, when dictators don't pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and death and more destruction. They keep going, and the cost and the threats to America and the world keep rising.
And Biden also warned against letting petty partisan politics get in the way of our responsibilities as a great nation. Let's bring in ABC's Elizabeth Schulze at the White House for more. Elizabeth, President Biden really tried to make this point that what's happening in these two war zones will have major impacts around the world and for many years to come. How high are the stakes right now for the president to try to convince the American people and lawmakers in Washington?
Well, and Diane, President Biden says the stakes could not be higher by linking these fundamental fights against autocracy and the fight for democracy. The president said now is the time that the U.S. has to show its leadership on the world stage. And the way that he's trying to do that right now, Diane, is through about $100 billion in supplemental funding specifically to help Ukraine and Israel. We know about $60 billion of dollars would go to Ukraine, about $14 billion toward Israel. And what the president says is this is America's role, that we have learned from history that terrorists win if we do not step up and try to take on this fight. And really, by making that connection between Hamas and the Kremlin, which are incredibly different, of course, as we know, by trying to tell Americans that this is something that you should care about, even though these battles are far away and even though it's hard to always see how our national security, our interests are at play, he was really trying to make that case. And it's something that we have heard throughout his presidency, but this was a really direct appeal, Diane, to the American public from the Oval Office and a direct appeal to Congress, despite the fact that Congress, even though he can make this request, it's not going to happen until we have a Speaker of the House, Diane.
The president also warned against threats of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Let's listen quickly to that moment.
Just last week, a mother was brutally stabbed. A little boy here in the United States, a little boy who just turned 6 years old, was murdered in their home outside of Chicago. His name was Wadiha, a proud American, a proud Palestinian-American family. We can't stand by and stand silent when this happens. We must, without equivocation, denounce anti-Semitism. We must also, without equivocation, denounce Islamophobia. And to all you hurting, those of you hurting, I want you to know I see you. You belong. And I want to say this to you. You're all America. You're all America.
So, Elizabeth, how is the administration handling the increase in threats on faith communities here in the U.S.?
Well, and Diane, by the way, we know that the president and the first lady spoke to that family of the 6-year-old boy who was murdered to express their condolences and prayers after the president gave that address last night. He said that this was part of his effort to show that the administration is continuing to show its fight against anti-Islamophobia and against anti-Semitism. And more broadly, we have heard the administration take steps in recent weeks to try to shore up security at temples, at mosques. We know that the Attorney General Merrick Garland came out yesterday and said that he's instructed law enforcement across the country to be on this heightened alert against some of these threats, and that ultimately a family shouldn't feel concerned about sending their kids to school. The people should be able to go to places of worship and not worry. And the president, again, in trying to make this direct appeal to the public, said, I get that these conflicts, he said, that are far away are resonating for so many people at home. And he said, I want you to understand that I hear you and that my administration is taking those threats seriously and those feelings seriously, Diane.
All right, ABC's Elizabeth Schulze at the White House. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.